There is comfort in repetitive movement. A yogi would say, I am practicing yoga. Perfection is never the goal. The process and what we learn about ourselves along the way is what matters. Stitching is like that. We carefully select our fabric, choose just the right floss, and we gather our tools, the scissors and needles. Then we take a seat in our favorite chair and begin to stitch. The needle goes into the fabric and comes back out. It goes in and comes back out. Stitch by stitch, we make beauty and find comfort as we stitch. Look at you being such a nice boy. What a good boy Archie is. I want to say hi to everybody out in FlossTube land. Say hi, Arch. Say hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Jackie. You know this is Archie, if you've been here before. He's an 8-year-old Scottish Terrier. And yeah, some of that gray around his eyes is because of his age. Some of it is because he's a brindle Scotty. He's got stripes all over the place on his back. You don't get to see that, but wanted him to come in and say hi today. And there he always has to shake off the fact that I've been grabbing him for a little bit. I was waiting just a minute. The train, just as I decided I was gonna film, the town train decided to go through, and it was kind of loud. Now that we're in December, today's December 8th, by the way, with all the trees having lost their leaves, anything that buffers the sounds going on in town, you know, it's not there anymore. So the train has become kind of loud. So I'll have to apologize in advance for that because I can't do anything about that. But anyway, hi, FlossTube, number 10 today. So thanks for coming back if you have been with me before. And if you're just finding me for the first time, welcome in. Nice to meet you. I hope you'll stick around. So FlossTube, if you don't know, is videos, a community of people making videos all about their love of the hobby cross stitch. Sometimes people talk about other needlework hobbies that they have. Me, I talk about sometimes my life and the journey that I'm on. So I started this journey of FlossTube earlier this year in 2024. I think it might have been May. I didn't go back and look. But, and one of the reasons I decided to start this channel is because, first of all, I felt like I had something to say, to add to the conversation that I hadn't seen in many other places. And secondly, I wanted to make kind of a chronicle of actually my life journey and my art journey, because I have been a professional commercial illustrator in my days. I started out as an illustrator for Hallmark cards. I went on to work for a gal named Mary Engelbright for many, many years. Then I left the art field. It was economic reasons. The whole economy kind of shifted gears in the way that I was able to contribute to commercial art. And then I went into retail. I was a yoga instructor for a while, and sometimes I interject a little bit of that here. Those of you who've been here before, you know, I add some mindfulness, sometimes I read a poem or do some meditation at the end of my episode. But a lot of what I'm doing is I'm just talking about the process of my life, because I've come to realize that cross stitch or whatever I might be doing at the time is really, well, I say I'm a process stitcher, and I mean that literally. I love the process of stitching, but I also use stitching or whatever I'm doing at the time to help me process what's going on in my life. So I appreciate those of you who made such supportive comments after my last video. I shared about a difficult emotional time that I was going through, and I really do appreciate all the comments. And those of you who reached out to me privately and had some things to share and add, I just want to say thank you so much for that. I'm coming through that time, thankfully, but it is still a process. I lost somebody pretty important in my work life, but also a friend of mine. And it was the manager of the bank I work at, and we still don't have a new manager. They're working on that. But again, you know, this is a time of year where people aren't making huge changes in their lives or looking for new jobs. Generally, it's holiday time, and most people are busy with their families and doing holiday things and all of the stuff that goes along with Christmas. And we just, of course, came through Thanksgiving too. And so, you know, sometimes you just got to sit in that in-between time and wait for whatever is coming next. And I feel like that's actually so apropos to the time of year that we're in. This time where we're getting into some of the darkest days of winter. Our daylight hours are very short. And we're coming up on the solstice on the 21st, where we'll have the darkest night of the year. And this is a transition time. Like, you know, nature has started to go to sleep or quiet down, at least some things in true hibernation. And so this is a time when we too could go into some hibernation. And by that, I mean into some times of introspection and reflection, of which I do a lot of anyway. I tend to be a very introspective and reflective type of person in my regular life. And so we're in that time when our surroundings are contributing to an opportunity to really take the time to reflect, if we want to do that. Some people aren't so great at reflection, but like I said, that's something that I do a lot of. And anyway, I just want to thank everybody for giving me the space to do that, because I really do feel like my art, anything that I'm doing with my hands and art-wise, is part of my process of life, and it helps me get to that place. And I feel like one of the things that I contribute in my life and through this medium too is that I really don't like shallow conversation, you know, small talk. That I just don't do it. It doesn't feel good to me. I'm always looking for the place that I can kind of angle in and was like, what's the motivation here? Where's the deeper connection that I can make? And that's what I look for in almost everything that I do. And I think that's what maybe one of the unique things that I can contribute to this cross-stitch community is I'm looking for the deeper into why we're doing what we're doing. And if that's not your thing, that's totally fine. The beauty of FlossTube is that, and cross-stitch for that matter, is that there's something out there for everybody. Each of us are such unique individuals, and what we have to present and share and contribute to this conversation adds to the many layers that are available here. And so thank you. If you're here and you like what I have to offer and you've subscribed or shared, I so appreciate it. When I first started this, I had no idea that so many people would connect to that. A lot of people have told me that my voice and the things that I'm sharing make them feel so comforted. And in fact, a couple of people have started calling me the Comfort Stitcher. I have a little problem with that because that's not really my motive. I'm about the stitching, but if as a byproduct of what I'm sharing, you derive comfort from that, that's a wonderful bonus as far as I'm concerned. So again, thank you so much to everybody for everything that you shared after my last video. And also after the last video, I put out a FlossTube Extra. I had done a 5 senses meditation at the end of the last video, and I put that out also as a separate FlossTube Extra because some of you I know like to go back to those guided meditations that I do. And so that's out there if you haven't discovered it yet. I think it's about a 10-minute video, especially at times when we're feeling anxious or ungrounded, whenever that is in your life. It might be in the morning and you're fine later, but if you're feeling like you need that, that's available there too. So I hope you'll find that and come back to it if that's something that would be beneficial to you. So I have notes today like I always do. So let me just look. Yep, holiday busyness. That's what most people are involved in right now. And I know in the cross stitch world, this is a really busy like weekend. And this time since the 1st of December, in the run up to Christmas, my gosh, this weekend, the Jingle Ball has been, I think it's still going on today on Sunday. I have not gone. I've had other things going on that I felt like would interfere too much in the timing of that. So, you know, maybe next year I'll feel like I can go. But that's happening. And then so many people have been opening different Advent boxes that they have received. There's a modern folk embroidery one that people are showing their day-to-day discoveries as they go through that box. And Kitten Stitcher put out a beautiful Advent box. I know Hobby House did one. I haven't seen anybody showing that yet, and I don't know if, you know, maybe they had some rules about when they were ready for that to be shown. I haven't seen anybody showing that yet, but a friend of mine shared the contents. It's beautiful, so I'm looking forward to people sharing some of those. And then people are doing what's called Vlogmas. There are a lot of floss tubers who are coming on a daily basis, doing just little short floss tube clips, talking all about some holiday stitchy goodness that they've got going on, sharing charts or little things that they're working on or doing for the holiday. And since I have just come back to cross stitch in the last couple of years, I have not yet gotten into really quote unquote holiday stitching, although I do have a few charts that would definitely fall into that category. But I've got different things that I work on that I just prefer to work on. So it doesn't mean I won't become a seasonal or holiday stitcher, but right now I'm not. And with that said, I actually have a new start, you guys, that fits with the season that we're in. So I'll share that. And but I hope you'll go and explore all of the people who are doing these fun videos. I know Andrew, the runner stitcher, is doing some that I've seen regularly. Michelle, Mama Loves You GB, is doing some. Sarah, sewmesarah, has done a little short or two. Who else do I regularly see? Well, those are the ones that I'm just coming up with off the top of my head. Oh, the gals from Evertotes are doing some regular, Carolyn, I think it is, who's doing some regular little check-ins for the holiday too. So those are the ones I know of. I'm sure there are tons out there. But a girl's got to, you know, have a life sometime too besides FlossTube, right? So anyway, that's all happening, and a lot to keep you motivated for the holiday season. And in this little town that I live in, I'm in Missouri, there's something going on here every weekend for the holiday. This weekend, there's a historic homes tour, a candlelight homes tour it's called. It's been going on for a long time. There's been open houses, and a woman has done a reproduction of a gingerbread, one of the churches in town, in gingerbread, I mean, you know, so all sorts of fun stuff. And I don't personally get into a lot of holiday decorating. I've done a little bit here in my apartment. Having worked in retail and the sort of social expression industry for so many years, you work on the holiday at off times. So by the time it gets here, you're almost a little tired of it. So I know that's a weird thing, but I do have a few things around my apartment for that. So I want to answer a couple of questions that I got after my last video. I totally forgot about white stitches. I'm going to talk about that. And somebody asked me about, she said, what's that? I'm sure there's a story to that dead cow on the wall. What's that about? Yeah, there's a story, and it's a buffalo skull. And there was a gift actually to me from after the passing of another friend of mine several years ago. But I have, over the course of my lifetime, had a love of Native American spirituality and art and material culture. I have done Native American style beadwork. I still owe you a little kind of showing of some of that. I've kind of got an idea how I might present that. So that'll be coming up in probably next year sometime, maybe early in the year. But if you don't know, the bison, or the American bison buffalo, was a sacred animal to the Native Americans. Every piece of the bison was useful to our native cultures. And not only was that in the form of like food, the skins were clothing, they could make things out of the bones, but there was a relationship. There's a lot of creation stories for different Native American tribes that had to do with bison. It was almost like they were part of their family. And the skull, of course, representative of that bison and the relationship, but also it was kind of a traveling altar. Native Americans were nomadic people. They moved across the areas that they lived. Some of them stayed, fairly local, but not in one place for any length of time until they were forced to locate to reservations. But as they moved for food and water, the skull was their traveling altar, and Native Americans had a rich spiritual life, just like other peoples and people do. And generally, we like to have a place to put our sacred things and to give us a connection to source or creator, the divine spirit. And the bison was part of that whole thing. So there's a lot that is symbolized in having that skull there, and not to mention the connection to the friend who, it was actually their family who gave it to me after he passed away. So there's a lot in that for me. So anyway, I didn't know I was going to go off on that tangent, but that's the bison. And then the other thing that I got questioned about, because I totally forgot, I was going to talk about white stitching. Somebody in one of my videos was looking at one of the whips that I have, the works in progress that I have, the Bridget Power sampler, which I'll show you, and was complimenting me on the quality, I guess I would say, of the white stitches. Now, Bridget actually doesn't have white thread in her. There's a cream and there's kind of a silvery white. No true white in Bridget. But that said, I thought, why is that such a big thing? And from what I found out, white stitching can be challenging for people. I didn't know that was a thing. And so I just thought, I was, at about the same time I was being asked that, Heidi from Stitching Down the Rabbit Hole was also talking about the same thing. And she did a little bit of experimentation, and as did I. And I'm going to refer you to Heidi's Stitching Down the Rabbit Hole video episode number 4, her FlossTube episode number 4, because she talks about white stitching in that and gives you an example of what she experimented with. Now, she stitches mostly on Aida, and in the sort of counts of Aida that generally require 2 floss threads. I'm stitching on linen, and I'm generally stitching on at least 40 count and above, so I'm using 1 floss thread. So there's going to be a difference there just because of that. And secondly, when you are stitching with 2 threads, you always have the potentiality for those threads to get twisted. I know it's recommended you separate the threads and then put the 2 of them, side by side, thread your needle, and you're working with those 2 threads. And there's a technique called railroading that a lot of people do, where they're putting their needle in between those 2 threads as they put the needle down the hole in order to keep those 2 threads separated, but then as they go through the hole and you sort of snug up your stitch, those 2 threads are laying more closely next to each other and not getting twisted around each other. Heidi did some experimentation where she did railroading. She didn't do railroading, and she compared and contrasted. and there wasn't really a lot of difference between the quality of those stitches. I watched a couple of other videos of people doing the same, and the general conclusion is there's not a lot of difference. So Heidi's supposition that maybe some of the issues with white stitches are, well, twofold. First, the color white reflects a lot of light. And so as light is hitting those stitches, you're probably seeing the shadows of the two threads next to each other, or if they do get crossed over each other, you're going to see that they're reflecting, they're shiny. The white thread that I tried with, which was DMC 5200. I'll put my little trial of 2 threads up here. And I'm going to tell you, I did 2 threads because I've got a piece of fabric. It was 36 count that I was trying this on. I do not like using 2 threads. It's just not going to be my thing. If I use 36 count, which I'm going to tell you now, I'm not too happy with. Well, it's my first thing on 36 that I'll show you in a bit. I'm using 1 floss thread on it. And I know 36 count is one of those things where you either do 2 threads because you like the coverage that you get with the 2 threads, or if you use 1, it's going to be a little bit less coverage and you're going to see more of your ground fabric in and around your floss threads. Some people like that because it gives it a more kind of primitive quality, if you like. I've become used to working on 40 count and 56 count. I haven't tried 46 count linen yet, but I like the coverage I get when I'm working on those higher count, smaller size stitches. So 2 threads, I'm just not there where I feel good about it. And 36 count, I feel like my stitches are so large compared to what I've been doing that, you know, you develop personal preference. That's why we do the things that we do. So I'm probably going to be, my personal preference is probably going to be 40 count and above. But I'm glad that I had the opportunity to try it out. So like I said, I'm going to show you the 2 floss threads that I did on the 36 count. I just did without railroading, and I did with railroading. My stitches kind of just looked messy again because 36 count, I wasn't crazy about using 2 threads. Then I did 1 thread on 40 count, which I'll pop up there. And I liked how that looked. I didn't have a problem with my white stitches on 40 count. Now, the other thing that Heidi mentioned about white thread and floss in general is that cotton floss, when it goes through the dye process, different dyes react differently to the thread, and which is going to then affect what you're seeing when you're stitching with it. Some flosses are very shiny, some look more dull. I know people also have similar issues to the white with black, 310. Or I've noticed it when I'm using DMC 3771. The new project I've got a really dark blue in it. It has kind of a dull quality to it. Again, that's the way that the floss has taken the dye, which then any light that you're using is contributing to what you're seeing. So there was a lot to say about, I don't know any specific tips or tricks to how to work with white floss. I think we might just have to accept that when you're working with white floss, it just is what it is. And when you're working too, I mean, you're 6, 8, 10 inches away from what you're doing. And so you're far more critical of that than when it's hanging on your wall or when it's in like a little small pillow or something in a display, or it's sitting, it's framed and maybe sitting on a bookshelf or near something else. Nobody's looking at it that close. Cut yourself some slack. Accept it for what it is. Enjoy it for what it is, what it's offering you. And if you're frustrated with it, accept the frustration, and move on, okay? That's your little motivational speech for today. Accept it for what it is and move on. Right. So white stitches. Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you about how I stitch in general is I tend to use what's called the Danish method of stitching, which I have come to learn because I always just did it like my mom taught me. You do one leg all the way across and the other leg all the way back, and that's called the Danish method. I just find that when I do that, I prefer the way that my stitches look, as opposed to making one full cross at a time. I do one full cross at a time when what I'm working on requires it. You know, you're sometimes just 1 or 2 stitches in an area, so you're gonna fill that cross. Or if I'm trying to make specific use of a fancy floss, one of like a darker color, if I'm trying to shade something very deliberately, and I might fussy cut my floss, or it might just need one full cross, I will do that. But my preferred method of stitching is to do one leg across and then the other leg back, and it's just how I prefer my stitches to look. So I just thought I'd throw that out there because it might have something to do with when people were looking at what I was sharing, why my stitches look the way they do. That's just what I find works best for me. So anyway, there's my little dissertation on white and stitching in general. So let's move on. I've got like the content today, like normal, and in FlossTubes, we generally talk about what we're working on, what our progress is or has been on the things that we've got going. I do have, as I mentioned, a new start today to share, and I have a little Stitchy kindness to share, and what have I got? Oh, plans, of course, because there's a couple of very specific things coming up that I want to remind you about, tell you about if you're new today. And then at the end, I'm going to have a little bit of personal reflection because, as I said, this is a reflective time of year for me. I've got something I want to talk about, and then I do have a poem that I think sort of is relevant to this transitional season that we're in. So I hope you'll stick around. Let's talk about some stitching. So my new start is maybe something that you wouldn't expect from me. I've got some thread that decided to come onto my lap. I'm in my stitching chair and I still have threads over here, so they're making their way into my lap too, migrating around. But I have a new start that I actually have just been waiting for a piece of fabric to arrive in the mail before I started it. And it's a Barbara Anna design. I'm just getting it out of the project bag here. It's, I think, also sort of reflective of the season. It's Barbara Anna chart called Light. Beautiful fox. Now this one is a free download. So if that is interesting to you, you might want to go download that. It's available in Barbara Anna's Ko-Fi shop that you get to through her Instagram page. I know she's got a Facebook page too. I don't follow her on Facebook. There might be links there too. But this one I was first exposed to by Sarah of sewmesarah and Sally of Flossy Sews and Grows. They've been spending the whole year working on, it's their 50th birthday, and they've been spending the whole year doing new starts and stitching along on different things for their 50 new starts for their 50th birthdays. And this was one of them. And I saw Sally show her start of this, and it was on an amazing piece of purple fabric. And I reached out to her to ask her what that was. And I ordered the same piece of fabric. And this is what it is. It's purple. Beautiful purple. It's called Regal. And it's from a British dyer called called Fabrics by CraftiKate, if you're at all interested. That's Regal. And this was 36 count. So I started this last Sunday, and here's where I got to. You can see I did quite a bit of stitching on that. I love this. I love the combination of colors, the beautiful red fox on that purple fabric. Just amazing. And Sally also did a bit of a color conversion for this, which she shared with me. Some of the colors are right off the chart, and the main difference being the sort of coat or dress of this fox. Sally made in this amazing deep blue color. And so here's the colors. They're mostly DMC with the addition of a classic, both classic color works. So the sleeves, and then there's the kind of quilty, snowflakey stars that are starting to come in at the bottom of the dress. Those are done with Classic Colorworks Cinnamon Toast. And then that amazing blue dress is a gorgeous color called Nighty Night. I know that's not in focus, but Classic Colorworks Nighty Night, isn't that amazing? And then I've got a few greens on there because I pulled the chart colors and then I pulled some different ones because I'm looking for something that's going to really look good on here. And I'll know that when I get to it. But this is Light by Barbara Anna, which I thought really spoke to, again, the season that we're in when we're seeing days that are so short and we're looking for the light in the darkness. This just really works for me. So that's Light by Barbara Anna. That's my new start. It also works really well because I needed something. I got invited to be part of a weekly Zoom group. Hi, ladies, Campbell, Sarah, Karen, all the rest. And I needed something that was a little more block stitching so I could zoom and stitch. So anyway, that fulfills a number of things for me. So that's Light by Barbara Anna. Again, free chart if you want to do that. And I'll put contact information for the CraftiKate, Kate from Fabrics by CraftiKate down below. That fabric was part of a Fabric of the Month club that Sally got, and I contacted Kate and asked her if I could still get that color, and she dyed that piece for me. She may do the same for you, but it never hurts to ask, right? So there is that. And then I also worked on Antoinette, which is a large French alphabet sampler that I've been working on. So this is Antoinette. Antoinette, 1894 to 1896. Packed with amazing red alphabets. This is by a company, if you're interested, called European Reproduction Samplers. I do always, got a reflection coming from my window. I do always try and put a link to that website. They're based in Germany, and this came all the way from Germany, and it was packed very well. It came relatively quickly, and I am so glad to be working on it. And this one, pull over my progress here. You're going to see I made kind of a lot. I worked on this for about a week after I filmed last. Looky there. See what you're seeing. There. So last time we talked, I had those top alphabets done, and then kind of the Z was in, and the little alphabets to the right of to your right there. And or actually my left. And so since we spoke last, I got all of those alphabets over here in, and from the K over of those script alphabets I got done. And then I put in a little bit of the border on this side, just so I could see. After seeing it the last time, one of my viewers was very concerned, and rightly so. I think it was an optical illusion, because I've been concerned as well, that I wasn't going to have enough room to fit everything in on this piece of fabric. And I started at the center on this one, up at the top center, and worked my way over to the right-hand corner. I like to generally start in the top, or I'm sorry, left. I start in the top left. Yeah, that's left. And I measured and measured to make sure that it was going to fit. But once I put that Z in, I too began to wonder, is it all going to fit on there? So I really felt like I needed to work my way all the way over to the right side and start putting in the border, just so I could make sure. And as you can see, she is going to fit on this. Now this is 56 count fabric. This is my first time using 56 count. The color is Shrekie's Tan by Needle Bling Designs. And I'm using a red silk from Overa Soie, the 103 size silk on a spool. This is number 664. For a lot of people, this is their favorite red, and it's a glorious red. Very Christmassy, very Christmassy. But I've already finished one spool, and I'm making some progress through this spool too. And this is my first also sampler that I'm doing in silks. I've used 103 silk in another sampler that I'll show you next, but I haven't done a full sampler in silk. This is my work on that. And I love doing this. I've said before, if you've been with me, you know I love alphabets. I know some people don't. I do. And especially the French alphabets. There were a lot of French red alphabet samplers that were done in the late 1800s and turn of the 20th century. And I'm sorry, I'm admiring it. Kind of glowing in the sunlight, at least it is to my eyes. It's just beautiful. I just love it. So that's my progress on Antoinette, 1894 to 1896. And, you know, there's just a lot to explore as you do the different alphabet shapes. A lot to learn about your stitching. Again, as I've said so many times, I'm a process stitcher. I just love the stitching. There's a lot that happens to a body physiologically when you stitch. The rhythmic nature of stitching calms you down. And, you know, deriving pleasure from looking at what you're doing, enjoying the colors that you're working with, the fabric that you're working with, the whole design of what you're working on. We're creating beauty, and that's so important in our daily lives, is to create beauty and a sense of calmness that we get from the rhythmic quality of the needle going in, needle coming back out, as I talk about a lot in the opening to my videos, and it just brings comfort to you. Not to mention there's a little ASMR going on too with the sound of your needle pulling through the holes of your thread, which is calming to the brain as well. So anyway, lots to get out of stitching if you talk about it, or if you think about it, and I do think about it a lot. So we'll move on to my girlfriend Heidi, who I mentioned stitching down the rabbit hole. She has a new boyfriend, a new sampler she's working on. She's calling it her new boyfriend. I have a girlfriend. It's Bridget Powers from 1840. And Archie going. Talking to somebody outside. If I have to stop the video, I will. Bridget Power's 1840. This is the Bridget Power's chart. This is a chart by Gigi R. And this is the antique sampler on the front of this. And the antique is representative of the finished product, but the finished product is gorgeous. So anyway, Bridget Power's 1840 by Gigi R. This one is widely available in the United States. Lots of places have it. You can find it online. I think, 123 Stitch. Call up the ladies at the attic. I know they would love to send it to you. They have a silk conversion for this. It's charted in DMC threads. Gorgeous colors. I have a 103 silk hanging off of this because I use that for the lettering on this chart. So this I'm working on 40 count linen called Up in the Attic. And that's by Fox and Rabbit. So here we are up at the top. An amazing basket of flowers. And we get down into that altar. And you can see I'm working there at the bottom in what's going to end up looking like a red patterned rug, but the pattern is what I've been working on. Last time I was showing you the back. What do you think about the back, huh? Oh my gosh. Here, let's show you it even better. There's the amazing flowers. There is the archway and the altar. And there is the rug. I guess if I can't tell the back from the front, it must be okay, right? But I do see all of my little knots, and not knots, but where I've threaded, ended threads, started other ones under there. So last time we were together, I had just this little bit of the rug done. I had all the colors in just so I could see them and what that was going to look like. I had that little part of the rug done. So since we saw each other last, I've put in the rest of the pattern. I have just a little bit left of the dark red to do, and then it will be the fill-in. And the fill-in is mostly actually a pink with a little bit of that red confettied through it. And it ends up overall looking like a red rug, but that is that. And so I think, going back to the discussion of the white stitches, when I was showing this altar, somebody was talking about the white stitches. Well, again, it's not white, it's cream. And then there's this sort of silvery white that's in that checkerboard frame around the altar. And yeah, there's 1/1 stitches in this. Mostly it is one floss thread over 2 linen threads. And as I said, this is 40 count. And if you a lot of you are working on this, I know. If you do this one on 40 count, it fits on a fat quarter. So that's Bridget Power 1840. And the reason I don't have more done is because I'm almost at the end. And if you have followed me along on this journey with Bridget, you know it has truly been a journey, and I feel really close to Bridget. And I have a relationship with her through the reproduction of her work. And once I'm finished, I'm gonna miss her. And so I know part of me is just procrastinating because I don't want I don't want to be done with this, but I do have a deadline in mind because in January, I'll be going down to Mesa, Arizona in mid-January for the retreat that's called Sampler Symposium that the Attic puts on. And on the Saturday evening of the retreat, there's a opportunity to put your work out on a table, the show and share. And I told Jean Lee, the owner of the Attic, who puts on that retreat, and she and I have a little correspondence going. And I told Jean I want to have this done so I can bring it for the show and share. And it's possible that I might even leave it down there to be framed if they have the right molding, because I have a very specific frame in mind for it. And anyway, just looking at her, as you can see, I admire it. I'm going to miss her when we're complete. But this whole process of working on her, I've learned so much about the symbolism in this sampler. And once I finally finish her, I'll go through all of that again with you in case you haven't been here from the beginning. But anyway, there's Bridget Power, 1840 by Gigi R. And one of the reasons I have figured out that I like working on reproduction samplers is because of the history and the opportunity to get to know the generally girls. There were some samplers that were done by boys, but generally girls as they were learning. It's a story of their life, the place that they were in their life, where they were learning, when they were learning the stitching. If you want to, you can do some research and learn about the environment they were living in, the time frame they were living in, and what was happening in their world at that time. Bridget, we don't know for sure, but pretty sure she was from Ireland in the 1840s. It was right before the famine. Obviously, there's religious, very deep spirituality that's expressed in this piece of needlework. So there's a lot to explore when doing a reproduction sampler for those of you who want to. And you don't have to. I mean, some people just do them for the pure joy of doing samplers, but I think I would probably make an educated guess that most people who find themselves doing a lot of reproduction samplers also really enjoy the history and that connection to another person through the stitching and through bringing that antique sampler back to life in contemporary time. It's like we are revisiting, we're visiting or revisiting that girl's life. So those are my whips, my works in progress. And I know I used to say that I was a monogamous stitcher, but when I said that, I had been working on one sampler, a pretty large sampler called Consider the Lilies. I worked on that for a year. I didn't do anything else. And so I was stitching monogamously. And when I finished that at the end of 2023, and as I moved into 2024, trying to figure out what kind of a stitcher I was going to be, I wasn't sure if I would continue to work on just one thing at a time or if I would pick up more than one thing. I still do like to work on one thing primarily, at least for, a week at a time. I could probably work on something for more than a week. But since I have a few things going now, I try and give each of them some attention that's more than just a day, because a day for me is maybe just a couple hours after I get home from work at night. And that's just not enough time with any one of the things that I'm working on. So I like to spend several days with the things that I'm working on. So maybe not monogamous anymore, but certainly I'm focused on each thing for more than just a day or a few hours at a time. So now I make a pile next to me of how I want to go through this. And just checking my notes too that I talked about everything I wanted to with my whips. And yes, I did. So I mentioned that I got in that piece of purple fabric from Fabrics by CraftiKate. And because whenever you order something, it can't travel alone. So I did order one other fabric from her. I got a color called Highland Coo, or Highland Coo. If you're over in Scotland, it's usually Highland. Anyway, Highland Cow. We all know what those look like. They're adorable, shaggy creatures. We have them in America now. A lot of people have started having them with their other cattle. But this is the color for Highland Coo. It's kind of a terracotta color, actually. And I pulled, this is 36 count. So both the pieces of fabric I got from her were 36 count. I thought I ordered 40, but I guess I got 36. So I pulled a couple of DMC flosses. I didn't have anything that matched it completely. This one does. I know that's shining, reflecting. This is 3771, and then this is 3064, that darker one. It's kind of somewhere in between those two, the color of this, kind of a terracotta. And the common color that you see a Highland cow in is like auburn red hair. So this is the color of a Highland Coo. And then I got some Stitchy Kindness this week, and I'm going to show you a piece of linen that came with it. And it just brings up the subject to me of how challenging it must be to consistently dye a color of fabric. So within the Stitchy Kindness, I'll share a little bit more, was this piece of linen called, this is 46 count. This is called Just the Ticket by Tabby Cat. And it's a warm tan color, and it's kind of blowing out. It might be more the color of it. It's a beautiful color. The thing is, I had some Just the Ticket in my stash, 40 count, and it didn't look anything like this. And I'm going to show you the difference. Look at how yellowy, almost has a green cast to it, this piece had. This I got, I think, from Hobby House. I would hear Nicola Parkman talk about this color a lot, and I thought, oh, it must be a great color. I want to have some in my stash. So I just ordered a fat quarter of Just the Ticket, and this is what I got. And I thought, okay, interesting. It's not what I was expecting. To me, when I hear Just the Ticket, it's a colloquialism. It's like, it's just the ticket. It's perfect for what's going on, for what you're doing. And I kind of wasn't expecting one that had a green cast. And I pulled a couple of flosses to give you an idea of, because it, like I said, it doesn't come across on the screen. So I pulled a couple of flosses. You can see that top one looks pretty close to it. But there is, some of the modeling takes on a little darker cast. That top one is 3047, and the bottom one is 3046. That's what this piece of Just the Ticket is close to. And then when I was at Sampler Symposium in January of this year, they had Just the Ticket too. Looks pretty close to the one I just showed you. But it's different, it's darker. It has a little more brown in it. So it too, you know, is on the order of those two colors. And to my eye, it has an Archie hair on it. It has a sort of a greenish quality to it, undertone, if you will. I want to make sure you know there's nothing wrong with that. I will find the perfect project for these. But I just assumed that's what Just the Ticket was, until I got that piece of 46 count. Now look, when I put the two together, how different they are. Now I also know that different counts of linen take dye differently, but those are really different colors. So I don't know the intended color that Just the Ticket is, but I've got 3 different options of linen if I ever want to use that. So it's just interesting to me. And I know, you know, I've talked before about my friend Marie, who is in Wales. She just started a linen dyeing company called Swan Bay Fabrics, and she's going through that same thing. You know, when you're dyeing fabric, there's so much that affects the outcome. The temperature of water, the dye mixing with the water, the atmospheric temperature, the time of the year, how cold or warm the room is, all sorts of things. So you have to be a chemist in order to be a dyer, I think. But anyway, I just thought it might be a nice opportunity to share that with you, that when people are showing you or talking about the linen or fabric that they used, or that the chart recommends, you know, any chart recommends the fabric that they used for the model, those things change. Dye lots change. And so it is what it is, right? And you'll find use for it. Even if what you get, you think, really? That color? You can always change it, because there's no cross-stitch police. That's what stash is for, right? That's what stash is for. So now I'm going to move on just to a little more of the Stitchy kindness. So I want to thank a gal named Teresa, who watches my channel. I appreciate that so much. She reached out to me and just said, you know, I think I've got some things I want to send you, if you'd be okay sharing your mailing address with me. And she had some charts she wanted to share, and then some other stuff, and she threw in that piece of 46 count for me. And I was delighted once again. Now, I don't expect this. I want you to know that. I don't expect you guys to send me stuff. I receive so much just from the give and take that we have here and the thoughtful comments that you share. I don't expect stuff. I have plenty of stuff. But the fact that some of you are so generous and want to share your stuff with me, thank you. Thank you. But you don't have to. But I like to show when people do that. So one of the first things I pulled out of the package was a Christmas ornament that I'm assuming Teresa stitched. Isn't that pretty? I don't know anything at all about the chart that this is, but it's really beautifully done. She sent me a couple of other pieces of linen. These are the Artiste brand that you get at Hobby Lobby, but it's Zweigart, so I'll use that for something. Maybe I'll even try dyeing some fabric on those, that piece of white. So there's those. She sent me several charts. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I will just kind of share. There was a Teresa Kogut, a couple of Blackbird designs. This one right here is one that I actually had wanted because I want to do that giant crow strawberry that's up in the corner. I know a lot of people love their Blackbird. I might say something controversial here. Not necessarily a Blackbird lover like everybody else. I like some of their stuff. Some of it's just a little too primitive for my taste, but I certainly can appreciate what they do for sure. For sure, but I definitely want to do that big strawberry up there. Got a Teresa Kogut here, another Blackbird, and Heartstring Samplery, and some others. And what Teresa told me is that if I didn't feel like I was going to use any or some of this, that I could use them for future giveaways. So you may see that. I don't do a lot of giveaways, but every now and then there's a situation that calls for it. So maybe that. She sent me a Christmas ornament. Who is this? Just cross stitch. Christmas ornament 2021 issue. Maybe that's the one that ornament came out of. I bet so, because I just opened to a page of ornaments. So anyway, I mean, a page of like snowflakey ornaments. So there was that. And then there were 3 project bags. A Christmas one, this patchwork one, I think that's a Lori Holt one. And then this one that has a vinyl front that's autumnal. there's that. So that was my Stitchy kindness. Oh, and the other thing, just this week, Teresa sent me a Christmas card and a Christmas present. Might look like a hot pad, but it's not. This is for my magnifying lamp that I was showing you guys last week. I had somebody want to know how I set up my magnifying lamp beside me, and I was showing you that I was using one of my mom's embroidered dish towels to cover the magnifying lens. And Teresa has the same lamp, and she made a cover for her lamp, and she sent me one too. So Teresa, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, certainly not expected any of this, but so much appreciated. So thank you. Thank you so much. So let's move on to plans. I've got two things coming up. If you've been with me for a while, you know I'm going to be working on a couple of different stitch-alongs. The first one that's coming up I'm actually hosting, along with Sarah of sewmesarah. We are hosting a stitch-along called the Barbara Anna 4 Seasons. And I have a paper version of that, which is getting a little bit ratty from being pulled in and out of the project bag so much. So I'm going to pop a picture of the Barbara Anna 4 Seasons up here. And we have designed this so that we're going to work each one of those girls over the course of a year, starting on the Winter Solstice, December 21st of this year. We're going to start with the winter one. Now that's for those of us who are in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, and I know both of us have viewers that are in the Southern Hemisphere, if you want to join along and want to start on the summer one, or whichever one you might want to start on, even if you're not in the Northern Hemisphere and you would prefer to do something more colorful than the winter one, feel free to join us. But how this is going to work, on December 21st, we're going to start on the winter girl, and then you have until the spring equinox to work on her. So hopefully that will help you integrate working on a sal into the other things that you might have already planned. And then on the spring equinox, we'll start the spring girl. At the summer solstice, we'll do the summer one. And we will conclude with the autumnal one. And that'll take us through the year. And we do have a hashtag for this, but Instagram has messed up following hashtags. So I don't know even whether or not it will work, but it's we're going to call it BA number 4 Seasons Sal. Pop that on the screen too. And if you want to share with us your progress on Instagram, just tag us, and I'll put the information in the description box below so that you can tag us so we can each see what each other are doing. I would love to see, for those of you who are following along, and I know some of you have reached out to me to tell me that you are, and I'm so excited to work on this. Another Barbara Anna piece. The Barbara Anna designs, I love the graphic quality of them. There's a slight fantasy aspect to them. I just really, really like them. I'm going to work my Barbara Anna girl not on a neutral background. I'm doing each one of them on a different color background. So my winter girl is going to be on this blue, which is called Sapphire. This is a piece of 40 count sapphire from Fiber on a Whim. And these are going to be the colors I'm using. Some of them are called for DMCs, and some of them I changed. My girl's going to have auburn hair. So that's the Barbara Anna 4 Seasons Sal. And this is going to be, I mentioned earlier that Sarah and Sally have been working on their Fun for 50 Sal, 50 new starts through this whole year. And Sarah mentioned in one of her more recent videos that when she was talking about what she had for the rest of the year, that this 4 Seasons Sal is going to be her last new start for the year. So I feel really honored that she has, first of all, agreed to be hostess. She knows how to hostess Sal's, and that she has decided to end her most auspicious 50th birthday year by working on this Sal with you and me and all of us together, concluding her birth year of 50th birth, a milestone for all of us when we get there. So next is another Sal that's actually coming up in January. And I don't know if I'll see you before we start this or not. I might. I probably will. So, you know, there's always so much going on at this time of year with the holidays, and then you go through New Year's. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to Sampler Symposium. I think that's January 17th, if I'm not sure. So I should see you. I try and get these videos in about every 3 weeks. But I'll try and fit it in, that I see you before I go to Sampler Symposium for sure, because I want to show you Bridget when she's done. Anyway, all that to say, there's another Sal coming up starting on January 10th. And I mention this almost every video, that I'm part of an international, a Facebook group, but that has an international membership. And there's a Zoom call once a month that I just so enjoy seeing what everybody's doing and hearing. I love hearing different accents. And Sarah, again, from sewmesarah, is going to lead all of us. This will be, first of all, the Facebook group name, Across the Pond Stitch and Chat. We're doing a stitch along with this chart here from La Di Da. It's called One Stitch at a Time. Now, this was, different members made suggestions of what they might want to do as a stitch along, and this one was chosen from those suggestions. And one of the reasons we chose this one was that it was available as both a paper chart, which obviously I have, or a PDF download. So if it's hard for you to get a paper chart, or you prefer PDFs and working on your stitching from a device, this is available as a PDF download also. So this is One Stitch at a Time by La Di Da. I've got it kitted up, and I'm going to show you those. These are the called for flosses. And they're mostly weeks flosses with the addition of one DMC. And I chose a 40 count piece of linen called Cow Fodder. I think who that's by. I've got it right here. Dames of the Needle, Cow Fodder by Dames of the Needle. So that's coming up January 10th. And Sarah has divided this one up to be sort of like an assignment stitch, where each month we're going to take it over the year, and in order to integrate it into your schedule, she's got it divided up into little assignments per month. And so we'll be starting this January 10th. Or January 1st if you want to start. But I do want to mention one thread correction on this. The chart says that it has cinnamon toast in it, but it says that it's from weeks. It's not cinnamon toast, because that's a different color. That one is by Classic Colorworks. This one is cinnamon twist, and they're different colors. So this is the cinnamon twist. But your chart might say cinnamon toast, but it is intended to be cinnamon twist. So I'm just throwing that out there. So that's going to be starting January 10th. I'm looking forward to that. I know it's customary to start some new things on the 1st of January. I need to get back to Julia Rachel de la Mer by Cross Stitch Antiques. That was my birthday start. And I don't know. We'll see what I do for January 1st. I'm going to be spending that with some friends. We try and do that every year at a little log cabin in a town about an hour and a half. About 2 hours, a little over 2 hours away from me. A little town called Arrow Rock, Missouri. Another very historic town. Blink and you miss it place. but it's one of the earlier towns in the state of Missouri, said to be a place where Lewis and Clark spent some time. So if you know that whole story of Lewis and Clark, how important that was to the taming of the West, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, it is part of our nation's history. So anyway, so that's my stitching. I'm going to move on now. So that's kind of the end of my regular kind of stitchy stuff. So if you would prefer to leave here, that's totally fine. I'm going to go on to like some personal reflections. And as I said, I've got a poem to read to you. So if you're going to move on now, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting me for this year since I started doing FlossTube earlier in the year. I never intended for as many people to watch these videos as have turned out for them. I had no idea that I would have so many people subscribe and share what I do. I'm so grateful. So if you're leaving now, just know I'm so grateful for you and for your presence here and for contributing to my process. So thank you. For those of you who are staying, thank you for sticking around. As I mentioned before, I'm a person who spends a lot of time in introspection and contemplation. And this time of year, I was talking to I mentioned I was in a new Zoom group with, it's just a small 5-6 people group. One of them is Campbell, who has a channel called Stitch Therapy. And I was with her and just one other gal on Friday night. And the topic came up, I'm a cancer survivor. And it's not that I have a hard time talking about that. I just really don't think about it very much until this time of year comes around, because I had breast cancer, and I was diagnosed in 1999. And I was 39 at the time. So if you want to do the math, you'll know I'm 64 now. I've lived a fair bit of time on the planet. But yeah, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1999, and it was at this time of year. So that's why I think about it at this time of year. So just to share just a little bit about that. The day before Thanksgiving that year, 1999, I was getting undressed and I found a lump. It was, I could see it, that kind of a lump, and it was large. And the placement of it, for you ladies, you know, up here higher on the chest, that's where it was. And it was here. And I thought, where'd that come from? Because I don't remember it being there. And it was large enough for me to see. So it came up fast. So anyway, I had to go through Thanksgiving that year wondering, not being able to make a doctor's appointment. And the day after Thanksgiving, I got in to see a physician. And of course, because it came so fast, we assumed it was a cyst. And she encouraged me to get right in to get a mammogram, which in America, I don't know how mammography works in other countries, but in America, they used to say you don't really need them until you're 50 or after, and I was 39. Why would I have had one before that? So I got in and very quickly, within a matter of just a couple of days, to get a mammogram. And they did that test and said, we want you to stick around and talk to our head of radiology. And I thought, okay. And so he and I were having a conversation, and he pretty much told me right there and then that he thought I had cancer. So I went in, and I was by myself because we assumed, my friends assumed it was a cyst. I went by myself. He told me I had cancer. I walked out of there, and I in shock. And so it became a whirlwind from Thanksgiving within 2 weeks. So on December 15th of 1999, I had a mastectomy. And I didn't have insurance. So, woo, American healthcare. I navigated my way through that, so without having to go into bankruptcy. But so I had a mastectomy, And I really wanted to go home for Christmas, but my doctor didn't want me to travel that soon after having had major surgery. So, and home for me is Northwest Illinois. Both my parents were still alive then. A friend of mine drove me and I got to go home. And then right after the first of the year, in the year 2000, I started chemotherapy. And I went through 4 sessions of chemotherapy. Lost all my hair. It's back, obviously. It's a little wavier than it was before then. And I've always had short hair, so that whole process was a process, because even though I've always had short hair, losing it still has its own kind of trauma in a way. And you know how people talk about battling cancer? There's a lot of like war language around that. And that doesn't work for me. And I think the whole reason I'm bringing this up is, number one, it's the time of year where I do reflect on that and where I am all these many years later, still cancer-free. But that war language just never has worked for me. And during that time, I was doing a lot of spiritual work. I've mentioned before, Carolyn Mace, the author and intuitive healer. She's a PhD in religion and other country religions, and does intuitive healing. So I was on that kind of path, and the idea of chemotherapy just really wasn't where my life and head were at. And then I had this war language going on that everybody was using to describe what was happening. My oncologist told me that the type of cancer I had was so aggressive that if I didn't choose to do it, he would get down on the floor and beg me to do it. So I thought, ooh, this is serious. So I did. And, but during that time, as I was making all of these choices, and you have to make them fast, life or death choices, you have to make them fast. You never know if you're making the right one, but you have to make the right one for the moment. But I happened on a book during that time that really helped me. It was called Speak the Language of Healing. And it was written by 4 different women about their experiences going through breast cancer. I don't know if it's still in print. I didn't look it up. But the title is why I'm bringing up what I'm bringing up. Speak the Language of Healing. And that got me through that time, but it's also kind of put me on a path that Speak the Language of Healing has kind of become my life purpose. Most of my friends will tell you I'm not an overly emotional person. You're seeing me tear up right now, so I can be. But I am a person who feels things very deeply. And I can feel other people's feelings too. It goes beyond empathy. It goes to being an empath. So healing and speaking towards that have really become my life's purpose. And so that's kind of part of what my channel, I guess, is about too. That has all just come to me today when I was thinking about that book, Speak the Language of Healing. What I feel like I have to share as a person is about healing. My friends at work will come to me and talk to me about what's going on in their lives, what things that they want help with. Like I'm their therapist, I don't have a shingle. Or like I'm their minister, I don't have that shingle. Customers at the bank will just start telling me what's going on in their lives, and they always say, oh, I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, Jackie. But people feel safe with me allowing me to see them. And after the last video and the things that y'all were sharing me, you saw me and I see you. Everybody's welcome here. Truly, everybody is welcome here. And I'm here to speak the language of healing and to support you on whatever that looks like, whether that's creating beautiful cross stitch, finding joy in those stitches, or if you're having a challenge and you're not able to stitch like I was having, And I needed to work through what that was about and why that was until I could get back to the place that stitching was what I wanted to do again. And speaking the language of healing. So thank you for allowing me to do that. I mean, I kind of knew when I started this channel it was about that, but I'm just now languaging it. It has just come to me today what this is about. This is what my life is about. This is what my channel is about. And I hope you're going to still stay for that. I want you to, because there's much to be learned from this. And it's all of it is a process. And I'm 64, as I said. I'm not going to change who I am now, and I hope you're on board for whatever it is I might have to say. So with that said, let's wind things up with a poem that I found by an amazing poet called Mary Oliver. It's called Snow Geese. So let's take a couple of deep breaths. Settle into your chair. If you want to put your stitching down, you can, or just settle in and listen. Snow geese. Oh, to love what is lovely and will not last. What a task to ask of anything or anyone. Yet it is ours, and not by the century of the year, but by the hours. One fall day I heard above me, and above the sting of the wind, a sound I did not know, and my look shot upward. It was a flock of snow geese, winging it faster than the ones we usually see, and being the color of snow, catching the sun, so they were, in part at least, golden. I held my breath, as we do sometimes, to stop time when something wonderful has touched us, as with a match, which is lit and bright, but does not hurt in the common way, but delightfully, as if delight were the most serious thing you ever felt. The geese flew on. I have never seen them again. Maybe I will someday, somewhere. Maybe I won't. It doesn't matter. What matters is that when I saw them as though the veil, secretly, joyfully, as though through the veil, I saw them as though through the veil, secretly, joyfully, and clearly. A moment of delight and beauty that reaches right in and touches you for that moment, and you carry it. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for going on this journey with me. I appreciate you so much, and I do mean that. I do. You contribute so much to my life. Thank you. As we go into the holidays, I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, whichever one or ones you're celebrating. If you find yourself alone, know that there are others who are with you in spirit. Thank you. Namaste, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.